Hey, what's up, everyone? This is the seventh and final episode in our Health Highlights series, recorded live from the Health Conference in Las Vegas, and it features Manuel Hoyer, Head of Industry for Health and Wellness for North America at TikTok. Manuel shares what's driving health and wellness to be one of the fastest growing categories on their platform, some simple ways to intentionally build trust with health-related content, and how consumers take action based on what they engage with on TikTok. Let's get into it.
Okay, a couple places we could start are what you were hoping to see here at Health and what you have seen in terms of themes or ideas, messaging, trends. What were you hoping to see? What do you actually see so far?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying this is now, I believe, my fourth or fifth year at Health. So I feel like I've been coming to this since it was they were doing it back in Boston. I would argue that coming here today, the main thing that I've seen is AI is in everything, right? I feel like there is no business on this floor that is not talking about AI one way or another and how they're integrating that into their ecosystem and their overall business model. One thing that I was really excited to actually find and have conversations around was specifically new businesses in the more modern side of health, particularly around spaces like longevity. I would argue the telehealth realm is still an area that I think is evolving, and that there's still a lot of players here on the floor that are trying to find new ways to service patients and customers in a way that perhaps our current hospitals or clinics are unable to. So those are some of the areas that I was hoping to see, and I've had some great conversations with different organizations that are doing just that.
What are you seeing overall outside of the conference, day to day on TikTok right now? Like health and wellness trends, like mentioned longevity for one. Like what's resonating there right now? Like what are you seeing the most of?
Yeah, sure. So I would argue, I mean, for starters, the health category on TikTok is one of, if not the fastest growing category on the platform, both from a video views perspective, but also from a brand involvement perspective, meaning more and more brands, more and more companies in the health and wellness space are jumping on TikTok for the sake of building community, right? Reaching their audiences where they're at and where they're spending the most time, and ultimately driving action, right? Whether it be, again, going back to that telehealth point, like driving an appointment being booked with somebody, or if you're a supplement brand, right? Getting people to learn about your creatine or your prebiotic or probiotic brand, and then actually initiating a purchase on our TikTok shop. I would argue, again, like it's such a fast growing category, and what we're seeing on the platform is that people are engaging with health and wellness content in a way that I would say I didn't even anticipate over the course of the past 2 years. And I think a lot of that is just a direct result of, one, the user base that we have, right? But two, it's really a matter of the change that we're seeing in consumer behavior, right? What we're finding is that when people want to find out new information about a health product or a service, they're no longer necessarily hoping to search it, online and just like, hey, read a full website on the product or service. Really what people want to do is they want to watch a video, right, that explains in kind of like a short form, hey, here's what the product does, here's what the service offers. But more importantly, they want to hear it from two sides. They want to hear it from relatable and authentic sources, so a peer, right? So say you take a supplement that I'm considering buying, I would like to hear Jared talk about said supplement and why it's working for him, right? And then on the flip side, what I also want to continue to hear from is an authoritative figure, right? So whether it be a healthcare provider, whether it be a nurse. And so both of these parties are doing a really good job at engaging and participating in conversation in the platform as it relates to the overall health and wellness space.
So those kind of some of the basics you recommend when a brand does come and say, like, we should be part of this conversation. We should be creating content in one of these spaces. We want to share, good, accurate information. We're living in one of these spaces: longevity, prevention, sleep, fitness, nutrition. Is that some of the advice you give them in terms of like just understanding even where to start? I mean, clearly they should be consuming the content and understanding and seeing what's working already so they can take advantage of that. But are there other like pointers you try to give when somebody comes and says that?
I think if I were to narrow it down to two things, it's this concept of continuing to educate, but doing so in an authentic and entertaining manner, right? So at the end of the day, what I always tell brands that we work with is, look, you might be a brand and you might have a logo, but as far as our users know, there is a person, there is a face behind that logo. And so they want a brand that is personable. They want a brand that is approachable. And so, on top of those other two things, the third thing that I would say is engage in conversation, right? So as of today, or perhaps up until a few years ago, what we saw was, there were brands going on social and different channels, and they're like, well, we just need to have a presence there, right?
Right.
And maybe through having that presence, we might be able to drive some sales of our supplement or of our fitness app or whatever it may be. Today, that's not what consumers and users are expecting. What they're really expecting is to engage with the brand just in the same way that they would engage with another person, right? So participating in that conversation is one thing that I always recommend brands to do, and to speak the truths, right? Like say, hey, I can imagine you have doubts about this stuff. Here's how we are addressing that doubt, right? Like, here's why you're wrong, or here's how we would think about it, right? Like, really being authentic in that sense is something that is making brands really, really successful on the platform.
How can brands either contribute to more trust in health and wellness or less trust in there? I mean, there's kind of an obvious answer of like, tell the truth, but it's really easy to not think of it in terms of that and just think of it in terms of I'm putting something out there and I'm trying to accomplish a goal myself. Whereas if one of the goals of a brand being out there or anyone out there is to create more trust in healthcare, which I do think benefits all of us. Is that accurate? Like, are you seeing that with creators who are clearly having that in mind with part of their content strategy?
Yeah, look, I'll tell you some data points here that I think would be helpful. Ultimately, doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers are becoming the most influential voices in health beyond the doctor's office, right? Like, that's usually when you would expect or where you expect to hear from them. Today, people are expecting for set healthcare providers or doctors or nurses, they're expecting for them to be able to speak on behalf of a brand, right? So what many brands are doing well and they're doing successfully is partnering not just with their current users, right, that who may be able to provide a testimonial around the service or the product, but really people still want to hear the facts, right? So as of today, what we're seeing from our own research internally is that 68% of our users want to hear from an HCP before they make a healthcare decision, right? So that says two things. One, HCPs are on TikTok. Two, people are listening to HCPs on TikTok. And three, brands should be taking advantage of that and partnering with set providers so that they can, again, provide or build credibility around their brands and their products more specifically. At the end of the day, they are the sources of truth, right? We can't take that away from them. So
Exactly. And I think that's what I would double down on, is being the source of truth. They're the actual source of truth and the perceived source of truth. Right. So they wield a lot of influence, and those who understand that are doing great things out there and sharing a lot of information that otherwise people wouldn't even know, let alone trust it to try something out or to understand what might be good for them. I think that kind of speaks to other trends that people that we've spoken with here at the conference have kind of led to that thought of like the overall evolution of healthcare is finally, with the right resources and data and founders out here, they give us a way to actually make healthcare more preventive. We don't have to wait till we're sick to try to treat ourselves. We don't have to just take one voice's word for something. We have sources to consider all of our options, to learn about them, and to, like you said, to hear from somebody. It's no surprise that what you just described, that's one of the most effective ways to create content, because you're understanding what people actually want and how they're influenced in one way or another, like how they are deciding what's best for them. And I do think we've seen over the last couple of decades, everything from doctors first not even wanting to be on Google or put any information out there. Yeah, it was, 12, 15 years ago, we were counseling doctors, look, people trust you, put your content out there on Google so that's what people are finding. If you're complaining about misinformation, put out good information. And so it's the same thing.
And what I'll say is, because I also don't want to take credit away from the consumer, right? I think the consumer still plays a pretty vital role in all of this. And what I would say is, on TikTok specifically, the consumer's point of view is not just the deployment of the message. I genuinely believe it is the driving force. And yes, right, like the trusted medical sources are very important. But ultimately, what we're finding more and more is that just as well as consumers are taking an action, just like I shared after hearing from an HCP on TikTok, they also are pairing that with, okay, I heard from the HCP that this service works and this product works. Now I want to hear from somebody who is using it as well, right? Let's hear what the benefits they can share are. Let's see what the potential side effects of said product may be. And the reason they're doing it is because consumers are still trying to find some sense of relatability around what they are effectively paying for at some point or another. Tomorrow, I'll be speaking about this a little bit on my presentation here around the new language of health. And the point and the premise of it is effectively this, right? Healthcare decisions are no longer necessarily just taking place at the doctor's office or at the pharmacy aisle. They are happening in conversations with your parents. They're happening in conversations with your partner, but there also might be happening at 2 p.m. while you're scrolling through your For You feed on TikTok, right? It's happening everywhere at all times. So it's more of a cultural speed that we're moving at rather than just like a scientific speed necessarily.
For sure. Yeah, great point. And it's true. It's everyone who's listening is nodding right now. Though, yep, that's me. That's me. That's happening every day. So it's very true. If you had an opportunity to speak with someone who is struggling to navigate their own health, and you see what content is available to them on TikTok and other channels, what's your advice to somebody who could use some help but doesn't know where to turn? They're frustrated by engaging with traditional healthcare. What would you tell them? Maybe it's like, a family member who's talking to you and just saying like, what do I do?
Yeah, look, I think that's a good question. I would argue for us as a platform, safety is really our core priority. And for me as a user and as a potential patient and as an individual, safety is also a priority when it comes down to anything healthcare or medical related, right? So with that, what I'll say is always, of course, seek out a trusted source of information, right? That's important. And that, as I have mentioned, can be a provider, it can be a brand, it can be a variety of sources that effectively have some title to them, right? That can tell you, hey, these people know what they're talking about. But also, I will bring it back to the fact that it is important. Look, I'll give you examples, right? When it comes down to a wearable, right? We're still talking about health and wellness. A wearable device. I have one on right now. For the listeners, I'm not going to say which one it is so that I'm not calling out the specific brand, but I am wearing one. And when it came down to making the decision for me, really what I did was I sought out, hey, which of these wearables gives the most accurate information, the most accurate data points, whether it be from an HRV standpoint, whether it be from a stress level standpoint, so on and so forth. And so I wanted to listen to the doctors tell me about that, but also I wanted to listen to the athletes because I consider myself, a runner, right? So I wanted to hear about like which one's the most comfortable, which one's the one that's going to help me track my mileage the most closely, which one's going to track my VO2 max the most closely. So again, it's always about the balance and the combination, but ultimately I will leave it at TikTok is a place where you can find both. And more importantly, what we're focusing now on as a platform is also allowing you not just to educate yourself, but effectively take action in platform, right? So our main focus as of the last year has been like, how do we close the loop from information to action, right? And last year, we opened up TikTok Shop specifically. So now what you're able to do as a consumer is you go on TikTok, you watch the video, you do your research, you search, right? If you like it, you click TikTok Shop, the product's right there, you buy it, it's at your house 2 days from now, right? So we've closed that loop and I do, I am quite proud of everything that we've done in terms of closing that commerce loop in most every industry, health included now, and hopefully, we'll make some strides on that front in the coming years as well.
Well, thanks for taking the time, Manuel, and we really appreciate all of what you're doing and everything that's going on, and can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you so much, Jared. Appreciate it.